What's up, everyone? I just wanted to get to some channel news prior to starting the mailbag. First things first, you're going to laugh. We are moving again. Long story short, we wanted a bigger apartment when we initially moved in here. We were told one was not available and would not be for a few months, but luckily, a larger apartment became available, and we hadn't unpacked everything yet, so it works out pretty well. So we're going to be able to move all of our stuff in one day a couple of weeks from now, and then I will get the studio completely established. The background is going to look really good. Everything's going to be completely different around the time of the second round of the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, I am almost finished with the Hurricanes and Islanders first round preview. It'll be about 30 minutes long, I estimate. It's pretty in-depth. Talks about the comparisons to the series last year, this year's season series, and what the Hurricanes could expect playing against the Islanders in the first round of the playoffs for a second consecutive season. Also, I have 2 review videos that I will be doing here soon. I'm finally skating again. I have switched over to a CCM FV1 fishbowl from the CCM Pro Shortcut Visor. I will be doing a review on that. So far, I'm really impressed. I also just picked up a Bauer Vapor X5 Pro stick. So far, I'm kind of meh about it, but I'm not big on low kick point sticks, but that was the best one available for me to buy at the time, and I will be doing a review on that one as well. If your comments were not featured in this mailbag, I'm very sorry. I do have the rest of them clipped, and I will be doing an additional mailbag sometime around the second round of the playoffs as well, once we're moved in to our actual permanent place. So now we're going to get on with the mailbag here. The playoff preview, I will be finishing it up as soon as this posts, and I hope to have that out tomorrow morning. I'm currently designing some channel merchandise as well. Simple stuff at the moment like hats, t-shirts, pucks, all those types of things. And the thing I'm really hopeful for is soon we'll have live streams. Our friends from Caniac Report and Caniac Sessions will come on with us for some of them. In addition to doing previews of every round of the playoffs that the Hurricanes are involved in, I hope to do individual pregame and postgame shows about 2 hours prior to game time and the following morning, depending on how everything works out with the schedule, with the day job, and all that type of stuff. So the first one here, I want to give a very, very, very special shout out to Daraj Ozul 7076. Forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly. I received my first donation for the channel from him recently, and he called me a beaut. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So the 2 that I have from him here, one of them is on a quick salute to Justin Williams, which I made a couple of months ago, back when he was being inducted into the Hurricanes Hall of Fame. He says, "Hey man, I truly appreciate what you do." And he also says, "Man, keep doing what you're doing. Canes fans all over appreciate your efforts." Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Thank you for the donation. Daraj is one of the most frequent commenters and contributors to the channel, so thank you for everything. I appreciate that a ton. Forgive me if I say this wrong. Synique replied to Sebastian Aho, a modern Rod Brindamore, which is to this date still this channel's most successful video. Says, "I think the only thing blocking Aho's Selke votes is Barkov." I tend to agree with that. The thing that I consider with it is that Barkov is not far and away the best in my opinion. He's definitely one of the best, but there's plenty of guys who fall into that category, and since defense is so hard to quantify, especially when you're talking about forwards, a lot of times guys like Rope Hintz, Nico Hischier, Mitch Marner is actually much better defensively than I think he's given credit for a lot of times. Anthony Cirelli, there's a lot of guys who don't get the recognition for being really good defensive forwards because they don't put up the points. Jesper Bratt, I think he's also a very good defensive forward. In terms of the Canes, obviously Jordan Staal and Teuvo Teravainen are both excellent defensive forwards. Seth Jarvis's game on the defensive side of things has come a long way, and I think that came from him playing on a line with Jordan Staal. So in the future, I think at least a couple of these guys that we have on the Hurricanes now, Aho in particular, will start getting a lot of Selke votes, and if there's any justice in the world, as I said in that video, eventually he will win more than one. This season, I don't think that he would get it. The last time that I thought that he really, really deserved it was the shortened 2019-2020 season. That was kind of reflected in his goal totals because a lot of the goals that he scored, and he still does this now, but it was more so when he was getting close to being a 40-goal guy when the 2019-2020 season stopped. A lot of his goals were individual effort goals. A lot of them were shorthanded, and they were because he was doing the right things defensively. And then I have one here. So thank you very much for the comment. Next one I have is from Rat Chetty. This is also on Sebastian Aho, a modern Rod Brindamore. Says, love the vid. I think I have ADD. I might too, to be honest. but I watched the video with my eyes glued the whole 15 minutes. Also, great choice of music. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That was my first video analysis video, so I was always like, I don't know how well this is going to turn out. And when I look back on it, there's a couple of things I wish I would have done differently audio-wise, and I think that maybe one of these days down the line, when I eventually do a super cut of all the things I have planned regarding Sebastian Aho, that I might do like a remaster, quote unquote, if you will, and get the audio going a little bit better on it and everything like that, because I definitely would like to record the audio again on it. A lot of the rest of it I was completely satisfied with. The subject matter I was really happy with. It had a ton of great engagement. It's all because of, you guys watching it, sharing it. I really appreciate everything. Panthers J-Dub, who is also another frequent contributor and frequent viewer of the channel, thank you for coming back. The first comment is on Hurricanes have a favorable schedule in February, which I made like literally right at the beginning of February. Panthers J-Dub said interested to see Waddell's approach, although he will probably do little to nothing as usual. Oh boy, I was worried about that too, and man, did he prove us wrong. The next one is on the trailer I made for the Jacob Slavin series that I'm working on. Most underrated D-man in the league. I agree, because he doesn't put up a ton of points. I also think that the league, as far as marketing defensemen, is not good about making a differentiation between two-way offensive defensemen, puck-moving defensemen, and guys who favor the defensive side of the game. In the case of Slavin, he favors it heavily. And I mean, even the NCAA has a defensive defenseman award. It's really past due that the NHL has two different awards for defensemen. And also, he made a comment here in regarding to the trade deadline, only a week left to get some more offense. Waddell would be committing malpractice by not addressing it. He made sure he addressed it this time, because Gensel and Kuznetsov both great pickups, especially Gensel. That's going to get its own video, though. I'm waiting until the end of the season, hopefully with them holding up this really gigantic trophy at the end, before I talk about the impact of Kuznetsov and Gensel. We have a sample size of it, but I want to see how much of an impact they really make, because I can tell you guys, I've lived in Washington since about the year I moved up here to the Washington area the year that the Caps won the Cup. Playoff Kuznetsov could be an even bigger difference maker than Jake Gensel could be, potentially, I'm dead serious. So, this other one was on a short that I made when I went to go see the Hurricanes and Penguins play on, I want to say it was January 12th, January 13th, something like that. Should have won in regulation, and damn, did Sid want to get out of there or what? LMAO, he sold. Yeah, that game was a nail-biter, and any game that we win where Brett Pesce scores 2 goals, including the overtime winner, you know what? That's a good day, because I like Brett Pesce, but he's got the softest shot that I think I've ever seen at the NHL level. I mean, you could track it with a sundial. He does a lot of other things well, and he's one of my favorite players of all time, but he cannot shoot a puck. He just throws absolute muffins every single time. It's like I see him make passes, and they're pretty crisp. Then he goes to shoot, and it's like suddenly his mechanics are completely different. I mean, he can shoot a puck harder than I can probably, but, it is funny to see. And then this one also from Panther J-Dub, back when I was doing the midseason grades for the defense and the goalies. We need a goalie a week ago, and still, luckily, everything worked out with that, because I was kind of sweating that too. I was wondering if we were going to see Freddie play again. I was worried about all kinds of stuff with that. Spencer Martin panned out really well. Kochekov is coming into his own, and now we have a definitive top 3 goalies with Anderson, Kochekov, and Martin. And in the event that he's absolutely, absolutely needed, Ronta is down in the American League, and the Hurricanes can call him up if they need him. I highly, highly doubt that it will come to that. But Panthers J-Dub, thank you so much for coming back and leaving all the comments and everything. I really appreciate it. So, to another very frequent contributor of the channel, and I really love this guy's comments because he's played before and he coaches, so he really knows his stuff. This is Dealey9268. He has 2 comments here from the last mailbag that I did that started off 2024. When I was playing at a high level, I used CCM Ultra Attacks. Well, see, my first pair was a pair of CCM 550s or something. I got them at the Play It Again in Fayetteville many years ago. They were like slippers. I'm currently wearing Bauer Vapor skates. I actually had a pair of Nike skates at one point. I remember those. I didn't get to play a whole lot back then. I didn't play much when I was growing up, but I do remember those. I remember seeing people wearing them still. CCMs and Nikes both had lift in the back that forced you to have the bent knee. Bauer seems to be more flat. I had to adjust. I like them now. My equipment is all mixed up. Many brands. When I was playing, it was mostly Cooper pads, CCM skates, helmet, and Yofa gloves. At the time, Yofa was the only brand with lower wrist cuffs. I played on one team in the Devils organization that had those Cooperall pants. I hated wearing them. Yes, they were comfortable, but if you got tripped or taken down and at full speed, those pants had no traction to slow you down. It felt like you picked up speed. Now I love the Cooperall shorts. Today's equipment is a lot more bulky than the 80s and 90s. Could be part of the reason for more head injuries, that and bigger players. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The players on average, like they're bigger, like their actual innate size is bigger, but they don't put on as much muscle as they used to, it seems like. With the off-season training now, it seems like that there is more of an emphasis on getting away from being skinny fat from the previous season, putting on a decent amount of muscle, but mostly lean muscle, and having an emphasis on their ability to be fast and to skate well and everything. And when you combine that with the fact that so many players in this league are like 6'2" now, maybe they don't have a ton of muscle on them, but they're still 6'2", and when they can skate really well, it's a deadly combination. So on the same video, he also says, why are things going well for the Canes on the power play? And overall, two main reasons for the power play success would be net front and the players are in motion more. I agree. Before they were never in front of the net. They play the umbrella with a guy down low rotating from the net, front to the side of the net for a pass option down low. I get it, but honestly, the net front is more important. I would see Jarvis step up to the side of the net. When he had net front letting the goalie see the play in the puck. That killed me. Also, the players were not moving. They would stay put and just move the puck. One thing I do like about TDA is his movement. Shea will do the same. Right now, the power play unit 1 is in motion. You have to take away the goalie's eyes and make him move. Before this was not happening. It is now, and the power play is on fire. Another issue was leaving the first unit on the ice for too long. Out of a 2-minute penalty, the first unit was out there for 1:45. The second unit would only get 15 seconds to work, and many times get the better chances. This was an issue last season as well. They acquired Ghost for the PP and only gave him 15 seconds to work with. That never made sense to me. When I saw them change the power play unit at 1 minute a few games ago, my reaction was almost the same as if they scored. Another place the Canes have improved on has been team defense. The offense is being defensively responsible again. When the offense and the defense work together at both ends of the ice, beautiful things happen. Things to note, Orlov is now looking comfortable. He has been making a difference on the ice. When he and Chatty are on the ice with the Drury line, they look dangerous. Drury, I have been hard on RBA for keeping Tripp's godson in the lineup. However, he is earning his keep as of late and good on both sides of the puck. I still hold to the view that Suzuki is a more dynamic player who is ready and should be in the NHL. Suzuki had a much better preseason at the rookie camp and regular camp. He covered up for many of the Orlov TDA issues in both preseason games that he played with them. His shootout talents are needed. Yes, he was injured and that has been an issue with him, but so far Suzuki with Jarvis would be a great line if you put a guy like Nason on his other wing. But as for now, you have to stick with Drury. Kochekov, he looks like himself again. When he was struggling, it looked like he was overthinking. To me, he looked like he was overcoached. He now looks like he has been given the green light to play the way that got him here. Something I would like to see. Can they try TDA on the wing with Fost out? This was a while ago, even though it looks like Fost might be out to start the playoffs, but I haven't heard or seen anything as of recording this video. I've always thought that TDA would make a great winger, even a solid center. This way you can still use him on the power play. However, it is nice to have Lemieux on the ice. I think the Rangers may have gone after Aho if Lemieux was not in the lineup. Yeah, so this was back when the Hurricanes played the Rangers the second time at MSG when the Hurricanes demolished them. I absolutely agree with that. Trouba basically said he was going to go out to get him, and you saw him try to board him and everything, and Aho exercised some really good puck protection, stayed stable on his skates. Yeah, he grabbed the stick a little bit on Trouba. Of course, you know, some of the Rangers fans on X were letting me know that Aho's a dirtier player than Trouba in their mind, which, I'm sorry, what? He will also be good to have against the Capitals. The Canes need to show more pushback versus tougher teams. No more candy canes. So I agree with pretty much every single bit of that. The power play has been immensely better since whatever the changes they started making around the game on December 12th. They're cycling the puck significantly better, and one thing I noticed is Aho has basically developed a power play office. And one day I actually want to make a video about how he does the button hook, the curl and drag scans, and then decides if he wants to make another pass or if he wants to shoot. and how deceptive it is to the other team's defenders. The cycling is much better. It's forcing the penalty killers on the other team to collapse, and the more and more you do that, you open up more time and space, especially with the umbrella, in my opinion, and you generate more high-danger chances. And even after they traded Bunting and got Gintel in, the power play was still great. That was the one thing I was worried about when they traded Bunting, was that maybe how good that net front presence had became would fall off a little bit. But Jarvis is getting it done now. Gintel's getting it done. Aho's getting it done. Nason is still an option for you there in that low spot on the power play. So there's a bunch of different things that you can do there. The team defense returned to form, and then it got even better. Orlov is someone, in the event that we lose Shea and absolutely need him, he's due for an extension here soon. Even though he was basically brought in to be the stopgap for Nikishin. If you lose Shea, you can think about extending Orlov, and if you extend Orlov and Chatfield, you've still got a solid top four for a while. In the event that, like, say, we win the Cup and Burns retires, you could maybe put Tony back in there because he's fine with Slavin. Opens him up to play how he wants to play, and Slavin can, cover up for the defensive mistakes. Suzuki, I have not watched a ton of Ryan Suzuki. He's someone who I need to do a little bit more homework on. The guys who I've been doing the most homework on are clearly Nikishin, Morrow, Nadeau, Blake, and all those guys are on the team now except for Nikishin, but I know some people have some doubts about him getting over here. I don't think that that's going to be an issue ultimately, as we saw Gleb Cherkasov came over, a bunch of other Russian players that came over. Ivan Fedotov's over here now, so I'm not too worried about that. As far as trying Tony on the wing, I am heavily surprised that has not been tried, whether it was with the Hurricanes, the Rangers, or the Flyers. I could make several videos showing why I think Tony is in the right league but playing the wrong position. And even then, he's good enough defensively. He's at least above replacement, I would say. He's good enough defensively if you have an injury, then you can still have a seventh defenseman in reserve and pull him out of the forward group and put him back with the defense for, just a game or two or whatever you got to do just to supplement the lineup, and then put another forward in the lineup if you needed to. But I would hate to waste a player who has that much vision, has that much speed, and his edge work is remarkable, and that's why he's good at quarterbacking the power play. It is very much a surprise to me someone who is that talented of a skater has a hard time with gap control. I know part of it's because he's a little bit on the smaller side. But if Tony started playing wing, I think you get like a player that's kind of in between Seth Jarvis and Teuvo Teravainen. He would have a lot of the same tendencies as far as getting in on the forecheck, laying the body on somebody, using a low center of gravity to separate them from the puck. But then he would have a vision like Teuvo Teravainen would, and I would wager to say, I'd have to double check NHL Edge, but I would say he's faster than Teuvo, and he's probably about the same speed as Jarvis, if not a little bit more. Him being a center, he would definitely be more of the offensively minded kind. When it comes to the defensive side of the game, Tony's issue has never been effort. It's more so the lack of awareness and the bad gap control. So if he were a center and his job was to backcheck and everything like that, backchecking is an art, not a science. Playing good defense and backchecking well and having a good 200-foot game, it's not about just getting there, it's about what you do once you get there, and I think you could teach him that. Because him being able to get there is not going to be a problem. Because I can't count the number of times, especially when he was in the lineup full-time when he was playing with Slavin, he'd do 3 or 4 really good pinches, he'd get brave, and he'd do another one. It wouldn't work out so well. You'd hear him shout an explicative on the TV, and then he'd start hustling back. So, all that is there. I really don't want to see a player like that wasted just because he's got one really glaring issue ultimately. And when he does jump on the rush, he generates a lot of chances, and he generates a lot of clean one-man entries in a lot of cases where I'd say the only other player that was doing it this much at that point in the season was probably Natchez, but now that we've got Gensel and Kuznetsov, it's happening even more, and it was already starting to improve. Dealey, thank you very much for the comment. The Branderis is another frequent commenter who has come back many a times. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being here. This video was on where I did a recap of February and talked about what at the time was the upcoming trade deadline. The Branderis says, I 100% agree with everything you said in this video, but man, you flat started preaching at 12:26. I appreciate it. I had a lot to say in that one because I hadn't got to make a video in so long. The Branderis also says in my video, a quick salute to Justin Williams, which he's going to get a significantly better salute at some point, Justin Williams is. I've got a lot of the footage for it clipped. I just haven't taken the time to do it because that's going to be probably an off-season project for me. He says, I don't know the guy personally, but I look up to him as if he was my big brother, number 14, captain, my captain. This franchise, and I mean this relatively, literally, I'm semi-serious when I say this, but at the same time, I'm dead serious. The Carolina Hurricanes may have been in Houston or Salt Lake City or Quebec if it was not for Justin Williams. When things were at their bleakest, he was instrumental to getting the ship righted. Brind'Amour did a great job, but without Justin Williams, I don't think you have the exact same effects that you have when they finally broke the drought. I don't think that a lot of our really good players are who they are today, particularly Aho, because they sat him next to him in the locker room right after he got there. They were grooming Aho to be captain a long time ago. And then this one is on Canes players that could play in the 2026 Olympics and Four Nations face-off. I've been wishing for NHL players in the Olympics for so freaking long, and the excitement has only built over the years with all the recent influx of American talent, and they would be throwing medals away if Slavin isn't on the top pair. I am going to lose my mind, and I will cheer for Team Finland if Jacob Slavin is not on Team USA. Straight up. I will be finished for 2 weeks. As a side note, I'd be more interested in your thoughts on the trade rumor speculation we've been hearing recently, like with Pettersson. That was nuts. I don't remember if I made a video talking about that at all. I think I did at some point. That was insane that Carolina actually was apparently ponying up everything but Nikishin to get Pettersson. And at that point, if you have a 1-2 punch like Aho and Pettersson, it's like, oh, wait, who's better? Well, that depends. What end does the face-off in? That's pretty much what it comes down to at that point. Right-handed guy for one side of the ice, left-handed guy for the other side. In my mind, that's an impossible trade. Granted, I tend to have more of a conservative outlook when it comes to player movement, although not Ron Francis level. Francis was overly conservative with it, but it also wasn't entirely his fault because Cormano strapped him for money and wouldn't allow him to spend to the cap. I also don't think it made sense for Vancouver either. The only reason it kind of made sense for Vancouver was that it was either you lose someone who's considered one of the best centers in the history of your franchise for nothing, or you trade him and you can get a really big haul for him back. If you let him walk, if they'd let Elias Pettersson walk for nothing, it would have affected them for a decade. So I understand the rationale behind it, and my buddies over on the Caniac Report caught some heat for this. One of them said before Aho got signed to his extension, if he doesn't want to sign an extension, you have to trade him. And he's absolutely right. Otherwise, you let a guy walk for nothing, and worst case scenario, he's playing in your division, and not only do you not have him, he's playing against you 3 to 4 times a season. Why teams aren't willing to hold on to pending free agents through the playoffs baffles me somewhat. Yeah, I've always been kind of baffled by it too, but going back to what it was before, it depends on what type of free agent it is. If you hold on to Vincent Trocheck through the playoffs and he walks in the offseason, it's not the end of the world. If you hold on to Elias Pettersson through the playoffs and he walks in the offseason, that's not good. And if you win and they leave, you didn't lose them for nothing. Yeah, but that's a big if, as if you win. But I understand where you're coming from. You have the cup, which is why I wouldn't be so eager to move Pesce. Maybe all the trade nonsense is just making me nervous. I don't know. I love that description of Jarvis's game, by the way. I'm glad they held on to Pesce. I hate that they're going to lose him for nothing, but I would put him in the category of if he walks, it's not the end of the world. If it were someone like Aho or maybe even Svechnikov, I would put in that category. Natchez, his future's kind of uncertain right now, but I would maybe put him in that category. And lastly, and probably the most important, is Slavin, even though it seems like a lot of teams would not value his skill set as much as one like Carolina does. Branderis, thank you very much for the comments. Keep coming back. It's been a whole lot of fun here. The guy at the top of the page here, BG Edits 1, he made my new logo, my new background for my X account, the background for this video, the video frame itself. That was all his doing. I gave him some ideas, and he went totally in a completely different direction, and I'm so glad that he did. He did an absolutely amazing job with the new aesthetic of the channel and everything, and I am very, 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 very grateful for him and I, making the connection we made, and I hope you're really enjoying the t-shirt and the hoodie I got you, buddy. Joe Malini08, forgive me if I pronounced that incorrectly. I was born in Jersey, but I moved to Carolina around 2015 or 16, and my mother worked for the Hurricanes, and I went to games all the time, and I started really liking the Hurricanes. I ended up moving back to Jersey, but I still have Hurricanes on top, and I have kind of a rivalry either way with the local Devils and Rangers fans here. Yeah, and this is a great time to be a fan of the Hurricanes, especially we remember what we went through a few seasons ago. It wasn't all too long ago that the relocation sharks were circling, and everything is better now. I feel really bad for Arizona. That's its own topic. But this team has good fans. I don't care what anybody says, And the attendance problems wasn't because nobody cared. It was between like, well, we're going to lose the team anyway. Why spend the money to go now when I can save up $5,000 or whatever to go to their last game or whatever? No point in being emotionally invested in it when you think that it's going to leave. And then on top of that, it wasn't so much the fact the Hurricanes were bad for as long as they were. We never saw things getting better. And we kept having these middling draft picks where we were just good enough to be 2 to 6 points outside of the playoffs, but never good enough to maybe draft first overall. When they finally got drafted Svechnikov, everything changed along with the changes that Dundon made with the ownership. I'm not particularly fond of what happened with John Forsland and Chuck Caton, but the results right now are undeniable as we're going to our 6th straight playoff berth. The next one is Adam H. 6395. I think that this is a new commenter as well. It was on the video I made called Alexander Nikishin Will Cause a New Level of Chaos in the NHL. I'm so freaking excited for this guy. And one more detail, he's wearing the C for SKA this season. Yeah, there's a really, really cool picture of that Hockey News Hub took, and I use it for a lot of different like memes and stuff. I am very, very excited for Alexander Nikishin. He will be ready on day one, and I don't see any reason for anybody to worry about him not coming over here and signing, especially with the Russians that have come over lately. Strogy Def says, great video again. This was in response to the mailbag from January. Great video again. Thanks for answering all the points. I'm glad more of us see things that way, and as you said, it proves to be right. Just a quick reaction. Aho stepped up his game since my last comment, and with the literal storm production he had in the past 4 games, he currently sits at 15th place in the NHL in point production. I hope he can keep it up, and I think the last I looked, he was up to 12th. Anderson, I was wondering the same thing. I haven't seen any actual posts about Anderson being on the ice. I really don't think he's coming back either. Thankfully, we were both wrong about that because I expected Freddie to hang him up, but it's also like, I'm not a doctor. I don't know the ins and outs of things. I know that pulmonary embolisms are serious, but whatever they did, maybe they caught it early, maybe there's something innovative that was relatively new that we don't really know about to treat it. Maybe there's some sort of breakthrough that helped him be able to get back on the ice because the guy is playing with a chip on his shoulder right now. He is hungry and he wants to win. The team really needs to make a goalie deal ASAP. The sooner the more time for the goalie to adapt to the Hurricane system. I am very glad that Don Waddell is making the decisions and that I'm not making the decisions because I would have went out and traded for a goalie pretty quick. But I'm glad that they were patient with it because the goalie market was borderline extortion at that time. The Nylander thing. Such trade, even if Toronto would be willing to do it at the moment, which they most definitely are not, would cost too much with star players like Nylander. The team getting the star is always the one losing the deal. I was thinking more of a UFA deal. The Hurricanes are going to have a ton of space this offseason, and there might be space to make a big deal like that. Toronto seems to have cap problems. Don't know the exact numbers right now. So if they do not manage to sign Nylander before the end of the season, I think it's definitely something to look at. As I said, the Hurricanes might be able to offer better deal to him, and overpaying somebody like Nylander a little bit doesn't hurt. Recent update, it seems like Toronto is close to making a deal with Nylander. Shame. Well, luckily all that worked out too because we got Jake Gensel. And there's a lot of signs that are pointing to him staying in Raleigh right now. I think that him staying in Raleigh has nothing to do at this point with whether the Hurricanes win the Cup or not. It's how close they look like they are to continuing to compete. And I imagine that they're probably close on money and term. And then beyond that, they'll be okay. There's a really good chance I think that Jake Gensel stays. I think that's part of the reason they signed all the ELCs that they did. If you lose Steph Nason, if you lose Jordan Martinook, if you lose Teuvo Teravainen, that's enough money right there to where you can make Jake Gensel a serious offer, and I'd be willing to pay him a little bit more than Aho. Since Aho's making 9.75 starting next season, I could see them trying to bring Gensel in around 10.5, but with a little bit less term because of how old he is. But that's something that'll be discussed a little bit more as we get closer to the offseason and depending on how this playoffs ends. But he was, following companies on Instagram that build houses in Raleigh. There's a lot of good signs that he wants to stay already. Strogy Def, thank you very much for the comment. And this guy made one of the best comments I've ever had on here with the one that was a response to the previous one that he did. Anthony Connard, one of my best friends in the whole world, says, great video, Brandon, talking about the Carolina Hurricanes midseason grades for the defense and the goalies. Thank you very much. Big supporter of the channel. Congratulations on the Capitals getting in. Nameless Rider, My first Nikishin video, Carolina Hurricanes prospect Alexander Nikishin, a simple look. Great channel. We love the inside info on the Canes. Keep up the great work. Thank you. Just for the record, I'm actually like not an insider or anything. I don't have any type of inside information or anything like that. I just kind of draw conclusions and everything like that, and I speculate a lot. But I don't have a press pass, or I don't really know anybody who knows a whole lot of stuff like that. It's just kind of me grabbing data and throwing some critical thought on it, mixing all that together and coming up with a conclusion. But thank you very much for the comment. Forgive me if I pronounce this wrong. Essa Yonley. Great video, thanks. And this was on Alexander Nikishin will cause a new level of chaos. No, thank you for enjoying that video, because I put a lot of time into that one, and I was really worried about how it was going to turn out, and I was actually really, really happy with it. And I'm hoping that more people will see it as we get closer to Nikishin coming over to the NHL, so that way they can at least have somewhat of an idea of what this kid is really, really capable of. I have never been this excited for a prospect in my life. There's always that little thing, especially since like guys like Ryan Murphy, a bunch of other ones that didn't pan out. There's always been that little bug in the back of my mind, okay, this guy might not make it. I even thought that with Aho a little bit, and I never saw Aho becoming a top-line center who was making just under $10 million and in the top 15 in the league in scoring, that's for sure. But with Nikishin, I don't have that worry. This kid has been ready for a long time to be in the NHL. It's just the contract situation is the only thing holding him up now. Thank you very much for the comment. Fly Henry Fly, on grading the forwards at the All-Star break. He says, keep posting. These are really well put together. I'm confident you can make this a very large hockey channel. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And like I said, my life will be a little bit more stable here soon, so I'll be able to upload some more videos. I'm going to do my best to do a pre- and a post-game show for as many games in the playoffs as possible, unless I'm out watching them, or if I actually do attend some games. I do plan on attending some games. I don't live in North Carolina, so it's a little bit for me to get there and everything like that. That Habs fan 1431. This was back on Hurricanes trade deadline talk with the recap of February. He says, don't understand why the Canes are not after Buchnevich. Buchnevich was who I was thought that they... So I was thinking, out of everybody I would have liked to have had, obviously Gensel. Who I thought it was most likely for the Hurricanes to attempt to acquire was going to be Buchnevich, because he came with some term, and that would help solve or at least mitigate the problems we've had with Jesperi Kotkaniemi falling off the way that he has. I did not expect them to get Jake Gensel, especially without giving up as little as they did. And another thing that was incredibly helpful with that whole thing was getting Kuznetsov for 50% off and a third rounder. That was a small price to pay for a guy who plays that well in the playoffs. Had they not been able to get either one of those, I think Buchnevich would have been a good fit as well. And he would have been a lot like the Trocheck acquisition. So that Habs fan, thank you very much for the comment. Groza AC, this guy was my first commenter on a video where I was talking about the future of the Hurricanes AHL franchise. I made that video with a cell phone. He says, somebody call Wake County PD. We're about to see multiple counts of grand larceny, and that's on the trailer for the Jacob Slavin series that I'm making. Yeah, and see, ever since I've been like clipping this footage and putting it together and making notes to, do the narration and add the graphics in after the fact and everything, because it'll be a lot like the Aho video and a lot like the Nikishin video. There are so many little other nuances to this guy's game that you don't see when you're hyper-focused on the play, where you're focused on where the puck's at and what the camera's pointing at. This guy is so much better than people give him credit for, and that's one of the reasons that, I originally only planned on making one video about Slavin. There's going to have to be at least 2, more than likely 3. Henceforth, the name of the series, The 6 Dimensions of Jacob Slavin, because I broke his game down. Initially, it was 12 dimensions of Jacob Slavin. Some of these can kind of mesh together here, and it'll be 3 videos. Each of them will be, I'd say, 10 to 12 minutes, maybe 15 at the most. But I'm really, really looking forward to finishing that project. That's something that I think that Slavin's going to re-sign. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't. And that is something I would absolutely love to make and have put out when he gets extended. So, Erotic Grim Reaper 1086, who I believe is a new commenter as well, on one of my older videos called Jesperi Kotkaniemi, has a ton of untapped potential. He says, these analyst videos are really good. I think you could do amazing if you made videos of other teams. It's not hard to tell that you're a Canes fan. You got good combination of voice, intelligent analysis, and a great way of making the story coherent and easy to understand. Good stuff, mate. Thank you. So I do want to make videos about other teams and other players. It will not be nearly as frequent as the Canes. One thing I have written up now for notes, I have one video I want to make about Evan Bouchard and one video I want to make about Miro Heiskanen. I've got a little booklet here that's just completely full of notes where I'm going to make all these things at some point or another. And then he also says on the Alexander Nikishin will cause a new level of chaos video, he says, honestly, with Nikishin coming in Carolina already having strong two-way players like Aho, I think we might have an extremely dangerous and intense team for the next season. Also, another great video, man. Nikishin is going to be the most important defenseman that this franchise ever drafted, other than Jacob Slavin. When he starts taking over a larger role as Slavin gets older, Nikishin's going to be really, really important to keeping that blue line elite. So coming up on the end of the mailbag here, on grading Carolina Hurricanes forwards at the All-Star break, a Caniac 5587. I agree with most of the grades, but not Stahl's. His plus-minus is too bad for such a high grade, in my humble opinion. Yeah, that one was kind of tough for me and everything to figure out how exactly I wanted to go about it. The way that I think I justified where I put him at was he's constantly up against top lines, and he's gotten a little bit older. He's still doing well enough to make sure that the games stay close because eats up 5-on-5 minutes, shuts the other team's best players down so that our best players can do their thing. So Jordo has kind of a thankless job. So that's the reason I gave him that high of a rating and everything like that. I know I was kind of pushing it with that. But I also understand where you're coming from, that his plus-minus is too low for a guy whose entire job in life is being a defensive forward. Yeah, he should probably have a better plus-minus. Nonetheless, thank you very much for the comment. Muckpack says, great job on that same aforementioned video. I appreciate it. Josh Epifanio, forgive me if I pronounce that incorrectly. I agree Bunting's scoring has been advertised, but man, I don't like the other aspects of his game. I just don't see the pest in his game. The cycle often dies on his stick, and he's one of the worst defensive forwards on the team. Yeah, I think that's part of the reason that the Hurricanes didn't have a ton of reluctance with trading him. Bunting is a specialist. He has a particular skill set, and that is going to the front of the net and finishing chances. He's got a little bit of playmaking ability. He can grind, and he does have pest elements to his game, but I think Brind'Amour kind of reined those in while he was still here. I think he's ultimately going to be a much better fit in Pittsburgh. He actually, I think, will be a really good fit there now that I think about it, like long-term and everything. I could see Bunting spending the rest of his career there because he's one of those players that, as we saw with him in Toronto, you saddle him next to somebody who's really, really elite, and he supplements their capabilities. He finishes on a lot of chances for them. And the Hurricanes like more dynamic two-way players, not necessarily role players. Even the guys who we have are role players like Nason. They still are pretty dynamic players and have a multi-dimensional game. So thank you very much for the comment on that one as well. Scotty doesn't know 24. Where are you playing at? I see the gear in the background in the Marksman jersey. I used to play beer league at Cleveland Ice Rink on Bragg for about 5 years. That's the only ice rink in Fayetteville I know of other than where the Marksmen play at the Coliseum. Did they build another one? Also cool that you're an airplane nerd. I'm actually an aircraft mechanic, and I'm also a student pilot with about 26 hours into solo flight. I love aviation. We have a lot of common interests. Can I look forward to any aviation nerd content in the future? So I'm sorry I saved yours for last, but I have a lot to say about this. Okay, so I actually don't live in North Carolina. I haven't lived in North Carolina since I left home in 2009, except for 3 months that I came down there after I got out of the military, and then I got a job up here, so I moved up here and lived in a hotel for about 3 weeks until I found somewhere to live. I haven't been on the rink in Fort Bragg in a long time, but I used to play there when I was a kid. I didn't play travel, and they didn't have enough kids for a house league. So basically what I did was when they had the pickup games for the kids and everything like that during like summertime, spring break, Thanksgiving break, and Christmas, that's typically when I played. The rest of the time I was on a pair of rollerblades on my carport shooting a street hockey ball at one of those old plastic Milik nets. And I've got a ton of marksman stuff. Like, I've got nearly as much fire ants and marksman stuff as I do cane stuff. I absolutely love the SPHL. I love minor league hockey. I practically grew up in the Crown Coliseum. Now, they did not build another rink in the Fayetteville area. I would like to see that happen. I actually know somebody who I drew up a plan for one. I don't know what stage that's at now or anything, but I do know that another rink being built there is not totally out of the question. I think it would be a good idea, so that way you don't have to worry about people trying to access going on to Fort Bragg and everything like that. That being said, I absolutely love Cleveland Ice Rink. It was the first place that I ever stepped on ice skates, And there's something distinct about that rink. Even in summertime, you walk in there and it's freezing cold. The ice in there is almost always good. I love skating there. I haven't got to do it in years, but I'm going to eventually do that. I got to get another pass so I can go back on the base. And yes, I am extremely I'm an and yes, I'm an extreme airplane nerd. The only thing I like almost as much as hockey, and honestly, they're neck and neck. It depends on what time of year it is, really, which one I'm more interested in. The only thing I love as much as hockey is aviation, particularly military aviation. And I do have another channel for my military aviation content. It's called The Warning Airspace. It's on the featured channels page of this page. However, I haven't done a whole lot with that. It's only got 3 videos on it right now, but I do have some stuff in the works for that. So if you want to see my aviation nerd content, eventually it will be up over there. It will just not be nearly as frequent as this channel, especially during hockey season. Long story short, I actually didn't really play hockey growing up because I had ambitions of being a fighter pilot. That didn't work out, and when I was in the military, I kind of didn't like my job, and I had no way of being able to get to do anything aviation related. Hockey was always a close second to that, and it kind of became something that superseded aviation for me, but only a little bit because I would go play at the rink in Chesapeake on the weekends and everything like that. And I was on the ice all the time because it kind of helped distract me from everything that was going on in life around me that I wasn't particularly satisfied with. So they've always been number 1 and 2, and they just kind of change positions depending on what time of year it is and what all I got going on. Like when Top Gun Maverick came out, all I did was talk about fighter jets. I talked so many of my friends to death about fighter jets, and they were like, wow, I didn't know you knew all this stuff. I'm also a really big baseball fan. I'm a big Atlanta Braves fan. I like motorsports a lot. I like NASCAR. I like IMSA. I like IndyCar. The only thing I really just don't fuck with is F1 or Formula E. Formula E cars annoy the fuck out of me. They sound like a dental drill. They like legitimately make me angry hearing them. And I've got other little interests too. I'm a really big Star Wars fan. I like Battlestar Galactica a lot. But possibly the thing I'm the most nerdy about with hockey, other than like the stats and stuff like that I show on this channel, is the gear. I'm very much a nerd for the gear. So, Scotty, you have been a big supporter and contributor of this channel. Thank you very much for the comment. But yes, I'm glad to know that there's other aviation nerds coming here. And it's really, really cool that you're an aircraft mechanic because, like, that looks like just a really awesome job.